Hi, Kiki, and welcome to the Truth About Weight Loss Summit. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
I can't wait to talk to you because your story is such an inspiration because you not only lost 70 pounds eating potatoes, but you've been able to keep it off now. Tell us what the secret sauce is.
Yeah, so really it boils down to building momentum and then maintaining that momentum. And of course, knowing what foods to eat is very important. But once you know what foods to eat, you have to build and maintain momentum to be able to do this long term and be successful all the way to the end of your life.
That's great. Before you tell us that, maybe tell us how you first lost the weight and why.
Yeah, so I had struggled for a really long time. I'm a small person, I'm barely 5'4", and I was at nearly 200 pounds for the better part of a decade. And I just could not get any significant amount of weight off and keep it off. I did low carb, I did extreme exercise routines, and just nothing ever fixed not only my weight issues, but I was also having blood pressure, cholesterol issues, and I was pre-diabetic. So I had somebody mention to me, hey, there's this doctor that helps people lose weight and heal their bodies eating potatoes. And my first response was, there's no way I'm going to be able to eat carbs and lose weight. I am Latina. I always say this, like, diabetes is real for my people. I was absolutely terrified of carbs, but I was at a point where I had tried everything. So I was like, whatever. So I went that same day to Barnes & Noble. I picked up his book, The Starch Solution by Dr. John McDougall, who is my absolute favorite doctor on the planet. And I read that book in one day, and I was just completely stunned by everything I had read in his book about, a high carb, low fat, plant-based diet, how you could lose weight easily and maintain a healthy weight and get your health back eating this way. So I just pretty much told my husband and kids that this is what we were going to do. And thankfully, I have a supportive husband, and we just did it. The next day, I was throwing everything out of the cupboards and the fridge, and we just jumped in, and I started eating loads of starch in the form of potatoes and rice, beans. I ate a lot of whole grain pasta and started watching my fat intake, and it was like magic. My weight started falling off, and I did come to some plateaus like everybody does. And I would just go back to my book, go back to his other books, and I started doing the things that Dr. McDougall teaches. And they're really like, that's the magic. You just got to understand the information and how to implement it.
That's incredible. One of the things I wrote down that you said is you read the book and you told your family, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
So many people struggle because they say, well, my spouse isn't on board. My kids won't eat that way. How did you get to do that? That's what people want to know.
Yeah. Well, I'm not the type of person to take no for an answer in any area of my life. So I didn't give them an option. Obviously, I couldn't control what my husband was going to eat, but I also knew that my husband wasn't going to make dinner. So he could fend for himself, or he could eat what I was going to eat. But he had seen how hard I had struggled over the years, and he wanted to be supportive. He did give me a time frame. He was like, I will give you 4 months. I will commit to this. But after that, I'm probably like going to go back to my meat and bacon. And I was like, that's fine. I will take that challenge. 4 months. Like, let's see, let's do this. Let's give it our everything. And I jumped in, we did it. And I lost like 30, 35 pounds by the end of those 4 months. And he had lost, I think, the same amount or more. And he's never looked back. He was like, nope, I feel better. His mystery joint pain had disappeared. He looked fantastic. So he wasn't interested in going back to how we were eating before.
I love that. You didn't give them a choice. That's what my mom used to say. You always have two choices for dinner, take it or leave it.
Or leave it. Exactly. Yeah. And I have, do you want me to pop up my before and afters?
I absolutely do. Because looking at you now, this gorgeous girl, I don't think anybody realizes you were quite overweight.
I was. Yeah. I was. Yeah, like almost 200 pounds. It was crazy.
And you're like 5'2", 5'4". You're not tall.
I'm like 5'3 3/4 on a good day after good chiropractic care. So yeah, so I'm little, and my weight teetered for years between 189 and 194. And I thought it was my hormones. I thought it was my thyroid. I had all of these reasons why I couldn't lose weight. So then to hear that, Dr. McDougall says the fat you eat is the fat you wear, I was like, well, I'll give it a try. And here I am.
That is such a difficult concept for people to grasp. And
it is.
Know it works. A lot of our colleagues know it works. It worked for me. And they don't even seem to want to give it a try when I've never not seen it work.
I haven't either. And I have now worked with thousands of people. And anytime they come to me, they're in a plateau or they're not seeing weight loss, but they're telling me they're doing everything right. When we actually sit back and we look at it, there's things in there that they're not following, that they're not doing. This works. It works for people in menopause. It works for people with thyroid disorders. It works.
I couldn't agree with you more. What kind of things were you eating before you started eating a high starch, low fat diet?
So I was, victim to all of the mass marketing out there, all the CrossFit marketing, all the paleo, everything you hear in the gym. You got to reduce your carbs, increase your protein. So I was trying to eat healthy. I was eating chicken every day. We were having salmon, breakfast was always, a couple eggs and like turkey sausage. On weekends, we'd have bacon. And now it sounds just absolutely horrendous. And to know that all I was eating was fat, in these animal products, we ate cheese, but we tried to eat vegetables, but everything you're sold is, they need to be in healthy fats like grass-fed butter and coconut oil. And so I was roasting all of our vegetables in all of this fat. And I could not for the life of me figure out why I wasn't losing weight. We also, would frequent pizza places and Taco Bell runs on the weekend thinking, we're really healthy all week. So it was really, I was so brainwashed to believe all the marketing out there that if I'm eating lean proteins and fish and having lots of grass-fed butter and vegetables and coconut oil and staying away from carbs, that I was going to be able to have optimal health. And my body was telling me the exact opposite. But I was genuinely confused about why I was doing everything I was reading and being told to do, but my health was just getting worse.
I think a lot of people don't realize that when they're eating high protein, like animal products, like salmon, they're really eating high fat.
You're just eating high fat. Yeah, exactly.
Well, how satisfied are you now eating the way you eat versus how you ate before?
I'm completely satisfied. We definitely went through a transition of letting go of the junk food, but we have found healthy ways to incorporate the foods that we love in cleaned up versions. What's not satisfying about a plate of fries, that are out of the air fryer and crispy and steamed broccoli smothered in cheese sauce? There's nothing not satisfying about that.
And your kids, are they on board now? Because I'm guessing they have weight to lose, but maybe they were a little bit worried at first when some of their favorite foods were taken away.
They were, but they were young enough. Well, and here's the thing is I won't negotiate with my kids. I'm in charge of their health and their well-being while they're in my home. I'm in charge. Once they leave my home, I have no control over the choices that they make, but I have control over the options I make available to them. So it was a transition for them, but I found plant-based ways of making them macaroni and cheese with low-fat cheese sauce. They loved spaghetti and it didn't have meatballs, but it had mushrooms or lentil meatballs. You just find ways to make the transition easier for them. But now we're such simple eaters that they'll go heat up a bowl of rice and beans and throw greens and some sauce on it, and they're good to go. So we made it.
I love that you say that you won't negotiate with them, because so many people, especially the women that I work with, their struggle is that they don't do what you do. They just try to still eat the way they want to eat, and then buy all the hyper palatable foods and make them for their family. And then they always fall off plan because their house is like a 7-Eleven.
Yeah. I mean, it's so impossible. Your brain is wired to want those calorie dense, super palatable foods. Like, it makes it very difficult. And I hear from moms all the time that feel bad, their kids complain about their food. And I'm like, well, why are you taking it personally? We shouldn't take the whining of our children personally. We need to remove ourselves emotionally from it and, stay in control of the fact that we are in charge of their well-being. We know better, and we have the emotional maturity to be able to look in the future and say, okay, this is for your long-term well-being, whereas children don't have that. And you need to empathize with that. I'm not like a dictator in my house. I definitely empathize with my children, how they're feeling. And I'm sorry you feel this way, but these are your choices. So, and there's creative ways to get your kids involved in grocery shopping and food prep and giving them some choices. But I don't personally believe that children should have free reign to make their own choices because they're not mature enough to do that.
Right. So, one of the experts on the summit, Dr. Esser, said, not you, Kiki, but you have to be the parent and not give them these things, because it's hard for them having the food in the house. And also they don't realize they struggle so much with their weight and food addiction. They're just setting their kids up for a lifetime.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't want my kids to grow up. I started dieting when I was like 13, started, seeing that my weight was coming on, and that's too young. I don't want my kids, and you can save them a lot of pain.
I love that. You absolutely can. That is fantastic. I'm so happy for you. And I'm sure you're very proud of your success as well.
Thank you. It's been life-changing. I'm very happy. It's very rewarding to be able to share my journey and help others. As I'm sure it's just, there's nothing better than to be able to give back.
Do you keep a clean environment, or do you have some of these hyper palatable treats?
No, we keep a clean environment for sure, because it's just too hard. Because if there's, chips and cookies in the cabinet, as even PlantifulKiki is going to want to get into that bag. So we keep a very clean environment. And like I said, I want my children to grow up eating real food. Now, holidays and birthday parties at other people's houses or travel, we still do the best we can, but there's definitely more leniency. But day to day, no, I keep our environment very clean. So my kids' snacks are a fridge full of fresh fruits and vegetables, because that's what they should be eating.
Right. How do you manage to travel?
So travel, I haven't had a hard time yet. When we go overseas, there's always somewhere you can get steamed potatoes. There's always somewhere you can buy fresh fruit. There's always a market. There's always ways to get it done. Traveling to Mexico is so easy. We do that a lot. And again, vegan places are popping up everywhere, but you can get rice and beans anywhere in Latin America. That's never been an issue. When we travel around the United States, we enjoy staying at Airbnbs where we have our own kitchen, and we'll go get our groceries and, eat at home. We will go out to eat once or twice that time, enjoy that, but I haven't had any trouble.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Do you ever worry that you'll gain the weight back?
No. I mean, I can be honest and say, the first few years, I gained and lost the same 5 pounds. so many times because I would experiment with, well, but I want to have peanut butter, on my toast every day. And that would usually result in, okay, well, I can't do that. So I'm going to find other ways to enjoy toast or whatever.
That's so, I mean, I'm just so glad that you experimented with that, because I find so many people do one thing to lose weight and then they try to do a different thing to maintain their weight loss, and it doesn't seem to work.
Yeah. That's a huge question. Like I get a lot is, they're on their weight loss journey and then they're getting close to where they want to be. And then they're like, okay, well, now what can I eat? How do I maintain my weight? I'm like, well, you keep doing what you're doing. Like you keep eating real food and you keep an eye on your fat intake. So yeah.
Is that the question you get asked the most by your fans?
I get asked that a ton. I get asked about plateaus, like why am I not losing weight? And okay, how do I eat to maintain it?
You eat to maintain it the way you ate to lost it.
Exactly.
Yep. Well, we know that exactly. Yeah. How many years has it been now since you've had this gorgeous figure?
How long has it been? I think it's been, I don't know if it'll be 4 or 5 years that I lost. I think it'll be 5 years that I lost the 70 pounds, that I have kept it off. Yeah.
How long did it take to lose 70 pounds?
So it took me about 14 months before I was like officially weight stable. But again, it would have gone faster had I not had the major transition and all the experimenting and hitting plateaus and trying to figure out what to do next. So even though it took me 14 months to get that off, which I still think is a great, time frame, generally the people that I have worked with, they go faster because they're not, I'm saving them the the learning process I went through.
Yeah. Did you ever try other diets throughout your life, and were they ever successful?
Yeah. I mean, I was in high school and that's when Atkins was a huge thing. So I did Atkins and it was so gross. You had like the ketosis strips, that whole thing. I did low carb. I did, what is it called? I can't remember. It's something where you're eating, I think it's like Nourishing Traditions or something, where you're eating whole food, but it's very high fat. So I feel like every diet I've done is high fat and coupled with extreme exercise, and it equaled no results, or like a 5-pound weight loss that took 5 months. And then I was only able to maintain it for 2 weeks. So,
and so why do people keep going back to what doesn't work, you think?
I think, like Dr. McDougall says, people like to hear good news about their bad habits. And people love to hear you can eat all of this bacon and cheese and, high fat food and lose weight. I also think there's just really good marketing out there, and we're all victim to the mass marketing on TV, on social media, in the gym. It's everywhere. It's in the doctor's office.
Yeah. And the doctors don't know.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever just feel like giving up?
Oh yeah. I was so frustrated. So frustrated. I was at the point of desperation the day that I went and bought Dr. McDougall's book. Like I was completely at a desperate point. I didn't know what to do. I had spent 2 days crying and feeling frustrated because when I do something, I do it both feet in all the way. I had done everything. When I say I had done everything, I had exhausted my options. That's exactly what I had done. I'd exhausted my options. I didn't know what to do.
Would you mind sharing a photo, a before photo? Because I think people don't realize you really were overweight.
Yeah, I will show. The first one I'll show is the progression. All right, so this is me. I think I was like 194 in black when I'm wearing that black sweater. And I had lost about 20 or 30 pounds in the middle picture. And then here I am. That was at Christmas just a few weeks ago. So, and you can see in the bottom picture, like how my weight loss just continued. So it's pretty, here,
Even
I'll show you.
But you know what? Even the middle one, just even on the way, you were looking fantastic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people, because not everybody. I always talk about this with my clients. There's your lowest sustainable weight and your lowest attainable weight. But even if people lose some weight, I mean, you still looked amazing, in my opinion, in the middle photos.
Thank you. I've never been shy, so it's like, well, you got it, so might as well.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is people need to know, like you say, it is a progression, and if they can't lose 70 pounds, they probably could lose something and still start to feel better.
Absolutely. My goodness. Are you kidding? Like I had lost 10 pounds so easily eating potatoes that I was like, I thought I'd lost 50. So.
Yeah. So what do you say to persons that are like just on the edge of diving in, but they still have that low carb mentality, you know?
What do you have to lose? Because anybody who's done low carb has done it for a while and has been frustrated and has gotten to the point where you just can't take it anymore. Your brain needs the sugar and you binge on carbs. So I always say, what do you have to lose? You know, the proof is that, if anything, go to Dr. McDougall's website and look at the testimony after testimony of lives changed by simply changing what you're eating.
Yeah. So what kind of things are you eating now? And did you eat to lose weight?
Yeah. So I still eat I eat a lot better than when I did in the beginning. When we first transitioned, you know, there was a lot of plant-based cereal and plant-based food products just to help us through the transition, with our goal being whole foods, you know, at the end. So once I started eating more whole foods like potatoes and rice and beans, lots of greens, those sorts of things, that's when I was able to push through that last plateau and get to where I am today. And I eat the same way. I still arrange my plate the same way for every meal. Even if I'm going to go out to dinner, I always order a huge side of vegetables and a steamed potato or steamed rice. So yeah, I try to eat the same foods I ate to lose weight so that I can sustain my weight.
So when you say arrange your food, it's visually 50% starch,
Yep.
50% vegetables by visual, not by weight or volume.
Yes, that was like the major thing that helped me get through that last plateau, which is really the most frustrating for people before you get to your, you know, lowest attainable weight, is that last push. And the 50-50 plate, you know, learning to dilute your calories this way is the magic sauce. It really is. And if you are consistent with this and you do it at every meal, you will get to where you need to be.
I agree. Calorie density is the magic sauce, and every meal, not yes. Just, you know, even breakfast.
Right. Even at breakfast, and 4 seconds and thirds.
Right. Every time you eat food. Exactly. It seems like such a simple concept, but people are just so vegetable adverse.
Right. You know, and I was at first too, because I was used to having things, you know, coated in fat, but you really do develop a taste for it. You develop a real enjoyment of vegetables. And I can't, if I'm ever stuck traveling and I haven't been able to have enough vegetables in a day, I just feel like, oh, I can't wait to just eat a bunch of vegetables.
I feel the same way after not eating. I didn't eat vegetables for 43 years, but now when I can't get them, it feels off, you know?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Did it take a while for either you or anyone in your family to really start enjoying the food? Was there a transition period where they really didn't like anything at first?
Yeah. I mean, I think at first, like, I'll be honest, like I don't like cooking and now here I am, but I struggled with making food taste good just because you don't know what you're doing. So they didn't like food at first. It was either bland or it was weird because I was using different things. So there was a little transition, but now everybody's happy and healthy and we've found our groove.
Yeah. You don't like cooking, but you do some kind of prep to have the healthy food ready, right?
Yes. And so that is like one of my biggest tips, other than you needing to understand calorie density and how to eat, is being prepared. That is the best way to build momentum and maintain momentum. If you're not prepared, then it's very hard to be successful, because you're always busier than you think you're going to be and more tired than you think you're going to be during the week. So it pays off to be prepared. I can show you, I have my chickpea curry here. I've got my actually, that's your lentil chili there. I prep all of my sauces on Sunday. This is my fat-free cheese sauce and my low-fat ranch. But every Sunday, and now that my kids are old enough to help, they have their regular Sunday foods that they have to prep to contribute to the household. So everybody just knows Sunday we spend, an hour or two, we prep all our food, and then the week is just coasting. All we have to do is heat up and go.
I love that. And it can really be that simple. People just don't understand that those of us, I can't speak for everyone, but most of the people I know that have been successful long-term have some kind of either batch cooking or batch prep system in place.
It's the only way to be successful. There's a lot of neuroscience behind it. You have to, one, understand what your goal is. You got to make a plan. So I plan, okay, this week, these are the meals that we're going to have available to us. And then you have to prepare. Those steps, one, they build neural connections in your brain to reinforce this new lifestyle, this new way of eating, this new belief that you are a healthy person. It's all part of the process, and taking the time to prep is crucial.
One thing I've heard you talk about is self-love. Where does that fit into this journey?
I think self-love is huge. I think when we try to change our bodies from a place of disgust and hate, it puts us in an adversarial relationship with ourselves. And I think it just takes realizing that you are in a relationship with yourself. Would you tolerate an abusive, negative relationship from somebody else with you? No, I wouldn't allow anybody else to talk down to me, to criticize me, to say how disgusting I am. So once I started really addressing my own beliefs about myself and started believing in my self-worth and that I was beautiful at any size, it empowered me to make the changes that I wanted to make. And I think the thing for people, when they hear self-love, people think, oh, that means I have to love the body I'm in right now. Well, that's absolutely not what it means. Self-love means that you are loving yourself, supporting yourself, and compassionate with yourself while you make the changes you want to make. It empowers change.
Wow. But how does one do that? I think that's
So I have and actually I have a blog on self-love on my website that I give people, the process and a couple things you can do to start really tackling self-love. So I always tell people to start with a list. Write down a list of the things that you love or appreciate about yourself. Now, when I started, I didn't love my body. It was really hard to think of things that I loved about myself. That's how low my self-worth was. So I started with things that I could appreciate. I could appreciate that I was able to deliver 2 healthy babies into this world. I could appreciate that my body has done its best. It has stuck with me through every sickness, through every crazy diet or exercise routine I've put it through. So that's the first thing I have people do, is make a list. Put a few things on there that you can appreciate about your body. If you can't think of anything, call your mom, call your best friend, have them help you. The next step is to every morning start your day with reviewing that list and reminding yourself of the things that you can appreciate about yourself, because it starts changing the way you view yourself and the way you think about yourself. And it sets you up for the rest of the day. Do that every morning. And then in the evening, before you go to sleep, spend a few minutes going over again the things that you appreciate about yourself. There's a lot of, I love neuroscience. I'm such a nerd about this. There's a lot of science behind this, that when you, even if you had a crappy day and you thought a lot of negative things about yourself, if you end your day going back to your list and being grateful for the things that you appreciate about yourself, you're actually changing the memory of that day. And you are rewiring your brain to be positive and to start believing that you are these things. So those two, just being consistent with that, you will start seeing a change.
That's fantastic. Thank you. What has your family said about your success? Have they said anything, and have any of them adopted this way of eating because of
it? So my extended family, of course, like thought I was crazy. And the first year after I had lost weight, like I had been telling everybody in my family, all my friends, my neighbors, like, you got to read this doctor's book. And everybody just was kind of like, yeah. But once they saw me in a different body, then they were like, what was that book that you read? You know, what was that again? And so, so we have several family members that have embraced the lifestyle, that have had their own success. So that's really great. I did, I think I wore out everybody around me, which is why I started my YouTube channel in the first place, because everybody around me was so sick of hearing me talk to them about it, but it all worked out.
Well, you've certainly helped to inspire so many people this way. So maybe it's a good thing that they dissed you.
No, I'm so honored and grateful for the position I'm in these days.
What's been the best part about being in this new body?
Just feeling in control again. I felt it's very scary to feel out of control, to feel like your health is slipping away and you don't have the power to change it. That was a very, very scary place for me to live in, because my numbers kept getting worse. My cholesterol, everything was getting worse. And I was too young. I was like 30 something, or in my early 30s, to be in that position. So the best part has really been feeling like I have control. It's not genetics, it's not thyroid, it's not hormones, it's not my age. I am in control of my health, and just feeling so good and having so much energy has been the best part of all of this.
Yeah, that is fantastic. Did you ever have cravings? Do you still have cravings? And what advice do you give people that have cravings?
Yeah, so I definitely had intense cravings for, like, I want to say 6 to 8 months after the transition, but it's all a mind game, and you can retrain your mind to think differently. And I really took Dr. McDougall's. I sound like I am a Dr. McDougall super fan. I listened to his lectures over and over. I basically brainwashed myself, through the whole transition so that I would learn to think correctly. But he said, when you encounter cravings, remind yourself that that's not food. Remind yourself that that keeps you in the place you're trying to get out of. And so I basically just started talking to myself differently when it came to cravings. I didn't keep those foods in my house. And I found cleaner ways of, having something. If I wanted a brownie, I would, make some chocolate oats, or make a little chocolate mug cake that is fat-free and, refined sugar-free. I just found other ways to meet those needs. But the biggest thing was to change the way you thought, or the way I thought about those foods, and just really training yourself to not view those as foods or health promoting.
Right. And yeah, like you say, having substitute recipes.
Yeah.
So many people believe, like, if they don't eat nuts, they're going to drop dead. I mean, but you seem to understand that you don't need all that fat.
No, there's I have been totally fine. I do enjoy a little bit of nuts in my ranch because it's so good, but I have to be very moderate. I will just start gaining weight if I start going in on the nuts. And that information that you don't need the overt fat was really foreign to me, because all of the marketing and all of the social media out there, all you hear is that you need this for brain health. Well, I can tell you 100% my brain health is drastically different today than it was when I was having all of those healthy fats. And I am in a much healthier, clearer, happier place than I was then.
Great. Thank you. What role did exercise, if any, play in your journey or in your health today?
This is actually another one of my favorite questions. It didn't play a huge role, really. So I was so burnt out on all of these extreme exercises that when I started my weight loss journey with, this way of eating, I stopped doing the gym. I was like, I'm just going to walk for 30 to 40 minutes every day. I think I heard Dr. Neil Barnard say, a 30 to 40 minute brisk walk a day is great. Aim for that. So that was easy for me. So that's all I did. No crazy CrossFit, and people, that's the question. That's another question I get a lot. Is people are like, okay, yeah, you got to eat well, but how much did you have to exercise? And I'm like, not very much.
Yeah, same here. That's fantastic. Had you ever heard of a plant-based diet before finding Dr. McDougall's book?
Yeah. So I had experimented actually with veganism when I was, I want to say 20 or 21, but back then, and that was like almost 20 years ago, the internet was still barely getting going. There was no resources or social media. So I was on a little island, and I didn't last very long because I was like, and back, it was all nuts there too. You need all these nuts for protein. And it was unsustainable and super expensive. So
nice. You have a beautiful kitchen. I'm wondering if there are any kitchen appliances that you could suggest that would make this way of eating easier for our
Yeah. Food. So a high-speed blender is number one for me to be able to make cheese sauce and any other dressings. So I love a high-speed blender and my air fryer. And I love my Breville because it's big and it's just amazing. I use that more than I use my oven now. But those two are my absolute, if I could only take two, it'd be those.
If you could take three, would an Instant Pot be up there?
It would, because it steams my potatoes every week. The thought of having to steam them in a pot over the stove is just exhausting. Like I said, I don't like to cook.
Right. That's no, I think that's fantastic that you don't like to cook, because you still show that even for somebody that doesn't like to cook, there are simple recipes that you can batch prep that are delicious, and learning to eat simple. I think learning to eat simply is a huge help. Huge. Absolutely.
And actually that's, to me, one of the most important things. If you can learn to just be a simple eater, this will be sustainable. When it gets unsustainable is when you're trying to make lasagna one night and enchiladas the next. It's a lot of cooking. And especially if you're like me, I don't like to say that I'm a lazy cook. I like to call it efficient, but we'll call it what it is I'm lazy. I don't enjoy cooking. So learning to eat simple is absolutely key.
I am right there with you. If people really saw what I really ate at home, they'd be like,
I know,
chef. I mean, they have said that. They go, this is what a chef eats. I'm like, yeah. What a formerly obese chef.
Yeah. I see. That's the same. It's I have these cookbooks, and it's I eat this every day because it's my favorite.
And would that be about would that be one lunch for you, or would you go back for second?
It is. This is definitely, and I'm always told I eat a ton. When I was losing weight and I was heavier, I would have 2 plates like this, but at this weight, this keeps me full forever. But I'm still told this is a ton of food. I'm like, well, I don't know, but I'm very active. I live out in the mountains. I have property maintained. So I definitely, somebody less active probably would need to eat this much, but I do great with this much food.
About a regular, that looks right to me.
Right. Okay. See, I'm like, what? I could.
And you'd put maybe some cheese sauce over either the fries or the broccoli, or maybe both.
Right here. Yep. My fat-free cheese sauce over that. And I like to mix a little hot sauce in here and then put that over.
Do you ever, when you're doing your batch prep on Sunday, do you ever freeze some of the things to pull out later?
Yeah, actually. So I'll make, if I go through the effort of making this easy curry or making chili, I will make an enormous amount. And this one I just pulled out of the freezer this morning. and I'll put a bunch in there. So weekends that were really busy, like this last weekend, we just got back from skiing. So I didn't have the time or the energy to do a ton of prep. So it's nice to be able to pull things out of the freezer and then only have to prep like my sauces.
I agree. I love that. What kind of meals do you normally have for breakfast and dinner? Because that looks like it could be a lunch, or that could actually be a breakfast too, really.
Yeah, I totally could. So I generally love, and this is actually newer to me. I've been an oatmeal for breakfast person forever, and then I'd have like a side of veggies, but I had so many, followers telling me, have you tried cauliflower in your oatmeal? I was like, no, I have not tried cauliflower in my oatmeal. That sounds awful. I don't love cauliflower, I'll be honest. But I was like, okay, I'm going to give it a try. So I actually did my 50-50 plate in my oatmeal. So now I'm like obsessed with, I'll do, my 3/4 cup of oats, and then I'll put in the same equal amount of riced cauliflower, some apples and some cinnamon. I'll cook that up. And that is like my go-to breakfast.
That actually sounds good. I've even heard people sometimes put shredded zucchini in their oatmeal.
Yeah, that one I've tried, and that one makes sense to me because of like zucchini bread, but like cauliflower just sounded so horrible. But once I tried, I'm like, oh my gosh, like you cannot taste the cauliflower.
It's very neutral. Do you use the riced cauliflower?
The riced, I use the riced frozen cauliflower because again, we're about efficiency in this kitchen. So,
right.
Yeah.
Do you, what's interesting is like, I find that like when you were talking about plateaus, and a lot of times if people are doing the starch solution, and Dr. McDougall, like you, he's one of my heroes and favorite people in the whole world. If they're doing the starch solution and they're not quite getting the results, if they go to his other book, the McDougall Program for Maximum Weight Loss, just tighten the screws a little bit, then they start seeing the results. Did you happen to ever read that book as well?
That's exactly what I did, because I read the starch solution, lost my first big chunk of weight. Really, I lost most of it with just what he says to do in the starch solution. It's amazing what real food will do. But then, I hit my weight loss plateau and I was not in a healthy weight range yet. So I had seen on one of the pages in there, he had talked about like the 50-50 plate in there. So then I went and got his other book, and then it all clicked for me. I was like, okay, I need to be arranging my plate this way every single time, and I am going to be really good. I was still eating quite a bit of, I wasn't eating nut butters, but I was still having quite a bit of like nuts in breads I was making. I was still eating a lot of bread. And he says to, try to eat less bread, more whole foods, really watch the fat, and dilute your calories this way. So once I did that, boom, another big chunk of weight loss. And then when I hit the plateau again, I went back to that same book, the Maximum Weight Loss one, where he talks about preloading with super salad, then your 50-50 plate. And the YouTube video that I share all the time that Jeff Novick did on calorie density, like absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, nice.
If you don't understand calorie density, that video will change your life.
That is fantastic. Do you tend to keep like the flour products low, like the breads?
Yeah. So I keep like, we're gluten-free. So I'll have like a little bit of oat flour and make, like right now on my counter, I have some banana oat muffins for my kids, for them to be able to pop in their lunches for school. But other than that, I don't really make anything with flour at all. I think my most refined product is probably breadcrumbs, because I love cauliflower wings on the weekend. But breads and stuff, I just keep to a minimum.
Nice. And what about things like sugar and salt? Do you tend to keep those a little bit on the lower side?
I definitely keep those low. Like in the muffins, I put in like a double batch of the muffins, I put like 2 tablespoons of coconut sugar, because the bananas are so sweet. And once you get off of all of the refined processed foods, your palate adjusts and you don't need all of that sugar. So we keep that very minimal in our house. If my kids want to sweeten their tea, they'll use a little teaspoon of maple syrup. But yeah, we keep that. And salt is very minimal. My kids actually, I don't know if it's laziness or they just prefer their vegetables unsalted, but It's very minimal. Yeah.
That's wonderful. I could eat at your house. You could eat at my house.
Yeah.
What about, there's two beverages I find that a lot of people struggle with either eliminating or reducing: coffee and alcohol.
Yeah. And those are both things that I have never, like alcohol, I got out of my freshman year in college, like got it out of my system, didn't want to touch the stuff again. And coffee is something I've never done either. So I don't truly understand how difficult getting off of coffee can be for people, but I do just encourage them to try to reduce it as much as possible and really evaluate how much their goals mean to them versus how much that social drink or that cup of coffee in the morning means to them.
Oh, I love that. Evaluate how much your goals mean. That's very good.
Yeah.
What do you say to somebody that's maybe yo-yo dieted for years and is, given up hope that they could ever lose weight?
Just to like take a look at my journey, because I have literally lived that life. I have yo-yo dieted since I was a teenager. I have struggled to maintain my weight. I have tried everything. Just give it. You're at the point then, if you've tried everything and you're ready to give up, then you've got nothing to lose. So try this.
So Kiki, what's the real truth about weight loss?
The real truth about weight loss is that it's simple and it's sustainable. You just have to understand what to eat. And that comes with understanding the principles of calorie density. If you understand the principles of calorie density, you'll understand what to eat. And that's it. There's no magic pill. It is that simple.
I love it. So calorie density, some kind of batch prep, and self-love.
Yep, pretty much. Thank you. You said it beautifully.
Well, thank you so much. You're such an inspiration.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.